Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome to qualifying for the 2019 British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and we are looking forward today to what is going to be another exciting and of course surprising qualifying session in 2019. And by the looks of practice 3 and also the weather conditions around Silverstone at the moment, literally anything could happen. We had some rain in practice 3. Weird conditions, honestly, happened in practice 3. Also, the track temperature was not that hot, so cars were struggling at times. And we had some interesting results in practice 3, which could lead, again, to a very exciting qualifying today at Silverstone. Hopefully, you guys who are watching are having a very good Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning or evening, wherever you are in the world. And hopefully today, you will enjoy qualifying along with me for, again, the 2019 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. But before, as we normally do, go into the teams and preview how we think they are going to do in qualifying at Silverstone today, let's first get into those practice 3 results. So, here are those results. It was a Ferrari 1-2. Charles Leclerc fastest, from Sebastian Vettel second, with Lewis Hamilton third. Pierre Gasly again faster than Max Verstappen, 4th and 5th for Red Bull. Bottas in P6 and then Norris P7, Hülkenberg 8th, Ricciardo 9th and Albon 10th. And then outside the top 10, Giovinazzi, Sainz, Kvyat, Grosjean, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Stroll, Perez, Russell and Kubica. And if we had a grid like that for the race tomorrow, that would be fantastic. But of course, if the weather changes again or, something weird happens, then it could change around massively. But now, let's get into previewing those teams and start off with the Silver Arrows Mercedes, who, in practice yesterday, I think they did look as though they did have clearly the best car. But after practice 3 and after Ferrari have seemingly solved some issues and have probably turned up their power unit to try and see how quick they really are, it looks as though there really is now a big fight for pole position between Mercedes and Ferrari. Now, because of the way 2019 has gone, I do have to favour Mercedes for pole, because if they have a chance of getting pole or a win or anything like that, they always tend to take it 90% of the time. Ferrari are kind of the opposite. They tend to blow it 90% of the time. So I think Mercedes are the favourites for pole position, but not massively, because as we've seen with Ferrari so far this weekend, at their worst, they're not that far off Mercedes in terms of pace. And sometimes, as we saw in practice 3, they're actually faster. So it is going to be close in the front 4 positions. It's really going to come down, I think, to the drivers for Mercedes and also Ferrari. It's going to come down to the drivers really in Q3 as to where they end up in those front 4 positions, because I think it will be that close between Mercedes and Ferrari, and hopefully it is separated by a 1/10 and a half or 2/10 of a second, and hopefully Red Bull can be in there as well. But I think going into qualifying, I think you'd have to make Mercedes favourites, because they just have such a great knack of getting pole position when they have the opportunity to do so. Next up is Ferrari. Again, Ferrari from practice 3, they seem as though they've turned up their power unit and are running a bit more aggressively with their car today on Saturday, of course. And they might have, in practice 3, they might have shown how quick the Ferrari car is this weekend. Hopefully that is the case. Hopefully Ferrari can lap at the same speed as Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, because that's going to make the fight for pole in a long time from now very, very interesting. But I think, honestly, Ferrari, again, I wouldn't make them the favourites for pole. I'd make Mercedes the favourites, because I still feel as though this team will find a way to cock up the result that they should get. They should be probably Ferrari. If you look at how quick their car is, they should be probably getting a car at least on the front row, but knowing them, they'll probably end up with one car on the second row and one car on the third row, because that's just the way they are. They tend to always end up with a worse result than you actually think is possible. So hopefully Ferrari, for once, it's probably not going to happen, but hopefully for once they can actually get the result that they should get, which is probably one car on the front row and one on the second row. That's probably the result they should get, and hopefully they can, to make qualifying exciting and of course the race tomorrow exciting. By the way, definitely watch out for the fight between Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel in qualifying, because those two, even though I think Leclerc has the slight edge over Vettel, they are very, very close in terms of lap time. Very, very close. And one small mistake could make the difference in terms of who is the leading Ferrari in qualifying today at Silverstone. Next up is Red Bull. Good news for Red Bull is that if you compare their pace to Mercedes and Ferrari from 2018, they're definitely a lot closer. They're not losing as much lap time as they were, again, this time last year at the same Grand Prix. And I think they're definitely closer to pole position or the fastest times than they were, say, a few races ago and again this time last year at the same race. So even though I don't think Red Bull are going to finish in the second row of the grid unless, you know, Vettel has another issue again or someone else from Ferrari or Mercedes has an issue, they should end up on the third row of the grid. But pace-wise, it does actually look pretty good. It looks as though Red Bull are probably, say, half a second off pole in terms of what they can get out of their car at best. And that sets them up actually for a very good race, because as we know, Red Bull are always closer when it comes to race pace and qualifying pace. So if Red Bull can at least get a third row lockout and be, say, half a second off pole position, I think they're looking really good for race day. And that's, you know, that's a great thing, because look at Max Verstappen in Austria. He definitely wasn't the quickest car in qualifying in Austria, Max Verstappen, but on race day, because the Red Bull car is so good and because he's so good in the races, he ended up being the fastest car. So if he can be again within half a second and Red Bull can, then that's good for them going into the race. One last thing with Red Bull is hopefully Pierre Gasly can keep up the performance he has done so far this weekend. I don't think he will. I think Max Verstappen will still beat Pierre Gasly in qualifying. But what I will say is, as long as Gasly is at worst a quarter of a second slower, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. If he ends up sixth, and again, a quarter of a second off Max Verstappen, that's absolutely fine, because that is, for me, what I expected from Gasly coming into this season. And I think if he did that, he'd be not happy, but, you know, moderately happy, considering how the last couple races for Pierre Gasly has gone. But guys, before I get into the midfield, I'm now going to come to you guys in the chat for a few minutes to get your thoughts as to, for the top teams, how do you think they are going to perform? First off, for Mercedes, do you think they are the favourites for pole position? For Ferrari, do you think they can get pole, and do you think there is a realistic chance of them doing so? And for Red Bull, do you think they're actually looking pretty good this weekend? I think, again, they are looking pretty good. And again, if there is an error ahead of them or a reliability issue, they are definitely going to be right there to pick up the pieces. So, yeah, let me know in the live chat what you think about those teams, and I'll read out your comments for the next, 10 minutes or so. But before I do, just want to say, don't forget, guys, to subscribe for more content like this, as we do watch-alongs for every Grand Prix weekend, consistently every Grand Prix weekend. And tomorrow's race watch-along is the only place you can watch a race watch-along on YouTube tomorrow for the 2019 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe and hit the notifications bell. But also, smash the like button if you want to see this content continue on the channel. But before I come to your comments, I'm going to have a quick drink to clear my throat, and then I'll come to your comments. Right, so let's see what you guys have to say as we have 50 minutes remaining until qualifying. Right, let's see what is going on in the chat. Matthew Felton says, I'm expecting Gasly to start doing better and be much better after the break. To be honest, I am not. I don't expect anything positive, really, from Pierre Gasly anymore. I don't, because his performances in Canada, France, and Austria were so bad. I've really given up on him in terms of him being in that car. I think he should be dropped. I don't think he's good enough. Yes, if he has a good performance this weekend, that will help his case. But if he goes on at Hockenheim and Hungary to continue how he was in France and Austria, then what he's done at Silverstone will mean nothing. So he has to do what he's done so far this weekend. He's got to do that on a consistent basis. Not beat Verstappen, but be right in there with other top cars and be around his teammate, which he hasn't been this season. So I think him massively improving, going on from now on to the rest of the season, I think is unlikely, honestly. Crystal Racing, great to see you, mate. He says Gasly has outpaced Max in all 3 practice sessions, but his race pace is unknown. True. I think Gasly, based on what we've seen so far, he could be definitely in there with Max Verstappen, but again, because of the race pace difference, the clear difference between Gasly and Verstappen, I think Gasly's chances of beating Verstappen in the race are basically none. Because Max Verstappen, when it comes to the races, is absolutely incredible. So, yeah. Memek asks, will it rain today? Who knows? It rained earlier in practice. I'm gonna say no. I think we could see some drizzle at times, but I don't think we're gonna get, say, a constant shower that's gonna cause qualifying overall to be, a wet session, or be, Q1 will be wet or anything like that. I think we might get light drizzle that might affect the cars for a couple minutes, but I don't think it'll be anything serious. I think that's the worst we'll have. I think it's most likely going to stay overcast for qualifying. Right, let me look at some other comments. Sebastian says, let me just read it, it's scrolled up. He says, I think Hamilton will have to do a lap like last year where he drags that Mercedes on pole, as I see Ferrari having a quicker car. Well, if Ferrari do indeed have the faster car, then yes, he'll have to do that again. And I think the chances of him doing that again are very, very good. So, yeah, definitely watch out for Lewis Hamilton in Q3, because he will give it absolutely everything to get on pole. Because, of course, at Silverstone, starting from pole most of the time, except for last year, of course, for Hamilton, but most of the time for Lewis Hamilton has been an easy road to victory from then on. Right, let's look at some others. Matthew Felton, Gasly is under pressure and he knows it. He also has full support from Red Bull and his engineer is still newish, so it's probably being leaned on too. I don't necessarily believe that Red Bull are fully behind him anymore, because I think there are some people in that team that aren't, against him, but they do have their doubts. And I think if you have your doubts about someone within your team, then you're not fully behind them. So, and also Helmut Marko has been criticising him a bit in the last couple of weeks, deservedly, by the way, very deserved. He definitely deserves criticism, does Pierre Gasly, for his performances. Like to watch McLaren's show. I am looking forward, if it does rain, I'm looking forward to seeing how Norris goes and Sainz go in the rain, because if you look at Norris and Sainz in wet weather, normally you get good performances. So if it does rain, you never know, you could have a McLaren up in the top 5 or 6 on the grid. Right, let me read out a couple more comments and then we'll get on to the midfield. A midfield, by the way, that behind McLaren is very, very close. It's very, very close, and it is really going to be decided in that midfield by a great lap from the driver, not necessarily a great lap or great performance from the car. Right, let me look at some other comments. Jason C says, unfortunately, Danny Rick and Renault got no hope for any decent result. I think Ricciardo probably will be in the top 10. But if you asked Ricciardo at the start of the season, you know, where would you want to be for qualifying at Silverstone, he would have told you at least in P7 or P8, not sneaking in P10. Only just about. So, yeah, things are not looking good for Renault right now. They're really not looking good. Yes, in practice 3 they improved, but you cannot say that this season Renault have had a good season. They absolutely have not had a good season at all. Right, let me find one more, then we'll get into that midfield. And Sebastian says, still think Hamilton will get pole as he is great on this track, but I see Leclerc being close behind. I don't see Leclerc risking a great quali lap like Hamilton. Well, if you believe Nigel Mansell, you do gain quite a lot of lap time when you're driving at your home Grand Prix. I don't think it's what Mansell said where you gain a second. I don't think it's that, you know, that much of a difference, but you definitely gain something because when you drive at your home race, you want to impress and you want to put on a show for your home fans and, you know, give them their money's worth for coming to pay and see you. So that's why Hamilton and Norris will be, say, excessively quicker this weekend than they normally would be. So, yeah, that's the situation there. And let me just look at the chat to see if any other comments. And Han Solo says Verstappen is the real rainmaster, not because he drives the fastest car like Lewis, but because he is the best driver. In Brazil 2016, Verstappen was faster than Hamilton. I don't think that day, by the way, Brazil 2016, I don't think Max Verstappen drove as well as Lewis Hamilton because Max did make that mistake. Yes, he didn't hit the wall or anything, and he did a very good save, but I don't think that day you could say Max Verstappen was the absolute best. I think Lewis Hamilton probably was because he maintained a constant lead and didn't make an error. But if it does rain, then Max Verstappen, I can guarantee you, will be in the top 3 on the grid because he's very, very good, of course, in the wet. But now let's get into that midfield. First off, Renault. Practice yesterday was not that great. Ricciardo having a reliability issue, and the pace of the car on short runs was very, very lackluster. Very lackluster. The long run pace for Renault was actually quite good, and that's not really a surprise because Renault are always better when it comes to race pace than qualifying pace. That's been the case basically since they came back into Formula 1 in 2016, so that's not a surprise. But in terms of their qualifying pace, I don't think Renault are going to have a qualifying session where you can say that it's been a very good day for Renault. I don't see that at all because they don't have a quick enough car. The best on the grid I think they'll line up is probably P9 because I think McLaren, as long as McLaren and their drivers don't make any errors and they have a clean session in terms of reliability as well, I think McLaren have P7 and P8 at least locked down for them. So the best Renault can get is P9. And if you look at the pace this weekend, P9 is not a guarantee for Renault because Alpha are close in there. Toro Rosso are looking better this weekend than they normally have. So it's not going to be a good session today for Renault. I think, again, at best, they're probably going to sneak into P10. And then in the race, they'll probably end up scoring a couple points. But the Renault car, you have to say, fundamentally, in the midfield is not a good car. It just doesn't have quite enough from every area of the car. It doesn't quite have enough downforce, doesn't quite have enough power, and that's really why they're struggling compared to McLaren, and that's why they're, 20 points behind? So, yeah, for Renault, things are not looking that good at all. It is, though, looking good for McLaren, who I think are pretty much, again, as I said a minute ago, if they have a clean session in terms of driving error and reliability, I think McLaren are going to line up on the 4th row of the grid, because in the last few races they've been so fast, and this weekend their car has looked as though it's the best in the midfield once the drivers do nail in a good qualifying lap. So I think McLaren are going to be P7 and P8. The one thing to watch out for that could be very interesting is how close they are to Red Bull. Now, they won't beat Red Bull most likely on race day unless Pierre Gasly again is absolutely terrible. But if they are only, quarter of a second off, that'd be a big statement really for McLaren to show how far in a year they have come forward. Because this time last year, McLaren qualified, I think, 13th and 18th, I think, for McLaren. And this year, it looks as though it's going to be P7 and P8. And if they can, again, be not that far off Red Bull, again, that will show just how far this team has come. And hopefully they can be not that far off Red Bull. And if Gasly is struggling again, then hopefully one of the McLarens is on the 3rd row of the grid. It's most likely going to be Lando Norris. Norris is likely to be the fastest McLaren runner because it's his home race and he just is better at this circuit. Carlos Sainz is not bad at this track, but he isn't as good as Lando Norris, of course. Next up is Alfa Romeo. Alfa have had a weird weekend. They brought some new parts to their car, but they haven't really had the opportunity to really showcase those parts because we've had rain on and off. Kimi Raikkonen had an ICE issue with his power unit, also in practice 1. So it's not been the cleanest weekend for Alfa. And going into qualifying, I think they're in a kind of unknown position, but I think if you look at this weekend so far and the pace in the midfield, if Alfa can get that lap out of that car, I think there is a top 10 finish in there. I don't know for which driver because Raikkonen at times looks quick but at times slow, and the same goes for Antonio Giovinazzi. So I don't know which driver will be necessarily the fastest at Alfa, but I think again, with that car, if they can get the lap out of it, not a perfect lap of course, but a near perfect lap, I think they can get into the top 10. I don't think it'll be a very strong top 10 finish, but I think there is an opportunity for them to do so. And hopefully Alfa can keep up their good form from the last couple races. Next up is Haas. To be honest, because of the whole rich energy stuff, I haven't paid much attention to the Haas pace this weekend because there's just been other things to do with Haas F1 going on. And well, if you look at the timesheets, from what I can see, Haas are not that quick. They're definitely not as quick at this Grand Prix as they were this time last year at the same race. This time last year, they were not that far behind Red Bull and were locking out comfortably the 4th row of the grid. This year, they look as though they're probably going to be, at best, P12, P13 with Kevin Magnussen. Romain Grosjean this weekend has looked absolutely terrible and looks as though he's having another one of those weekends where he does absolutely nothing and is dead slow. So Haas, yeah, I don't see them getting in the top 10. They don't have a good enough car fundamentally, I think, to get in there like they did at Austria in qualifying. The bad thing for Haas is that, of course, we know on race day they're so poor. But the bad thing now for Haas is that they don't have that great qualifying pace anymore. Now, in qualifying, they're not that good. And with how bad they are on a race, that's just making the situation at Haas even worse. So it gets even worse, I'm afraid, for Haas F1. Next up is Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso, for me, so far this weekend, have been the surprise of the weekend because I think I don't know if it's every practice session so far, but it's definitely 2 out of the 3. They've had a car in the top 10. That's not what was expected. I thought Toro Rosso, at best, would probably be P12. I didn't think they'd be P9, P10 area at Silverstone. And it looks as though, I mean, we'll see in qualifying how quick the car really is, but if they can keep it up in qualifying and in the race, it looks as though Toro Rosso have made a step forward again and have recovered that step back that they made in France and Austria. So, looking good at the moment for Toro Rosso, and I will say that they are definitely the dark horse for a good qualifying. I think Albon, who won here, by the way, in F2 last year, definitely watch out for him. And also Danny Kvyat, watch out for him, because if you look at Kvyat's history at Silverstone, he's actually quite good. So I think we're going to see quite a strong performance from Toro Rosso compared to how we thought they would be. So looking good for Toro Rosso. Hopefully they can keep it up because they are being kind of left behind in that midfield battle. And then at the back of the midfield, of course, is Racing Point, and they do have the slowest car in the midfield. They were 17th and 18th in practice 3. Sergio Perez was actually quite quick in practice 2, but I don't think that is the genuine pace of the Racing Point car. I think Racing Point, again, still have the worst car in the midfield, and luckily for them, their massive new upgrade, which is basically a completely new car that is coming for Hockenheim, they cannot wait for it, and luckily for them, it's only 1 race away, because I think they really took a lot of pain in these last few races. After the first 4 races, Racing Point looked as though they would be in a fight for P5, P6 in the Constructors, but at the moment, they are really being left behind. And also, if you look at just the pace of the car in qualifying, they've been absolutely terrible since the Spanish Grand Prix, where they did bring upgrades, but they didn't actually work on the car. The only positive race was, Canada? So, Racing Point, they're probably going to get both cars knocked out in qualifying 1. Hopefully tomorrow's race can be better, but yeah, as I said, they are just desperately waiting for the new upgrade at Hockenheim, which is a massive upgrade. And the reason they're bringing that Hockenheim upgrade is because if you've noticed with this team, when they were Force India, they used to do this a lot. They did this in 2015, for example, where they started off the year slow, and then around Austria Silverstone time, they brought basically a B car, a B spec car, for the second half of 2015, and the second half of 2015, Force India were probably the best team in the midfield. So basically, the car for Racing Point that's coming to Hockenheim is a B-spec car, and hopefully that can give them, say, half a second, maybe more, because if it does, they'll be right in there with teams like Renault and Alfa for top 10 finishes. So let's hope that Racing Point can get that upgrade working for them in a race time. And of course, at the back is, there you go, is Williams. Of course, is George Russell's home race. He can't do anything, though, anything good today in qualifying, because, as we know, the Williams car is absolutely terrible. It is great to see Russell doing his first ever British Grand Prix, but again, because of the car, I don't think we can expect anything from Russell today in qualifying. But guys, for the midfield, with half an hour to go until qualifying, let me know, what do you think for the midfield? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Renault can get into the top 10? Do you think McLaren are going to be clearly at the front of the midfield? For Alfa, do you think they can get in the top 10? What do you think about Haas? Do you think Toro Rosso will be a dark horse and will surprise us? And for Racing Point, do you think they'll do better than getting knocked out in Q1, which it seems as though is what they are consistently doing right now is being the slowest team in qualifying, but then on race day for some reason they are always a few positions higher for some reason. So yeah, let me know what you think about the midfield, and I'll, for the next 10 minutes or so, I'll read out your comments in regards to the midfield. But again, I'll have a quick drink to clear my throat, and then we'll get on to that, to your comments about the midfield. Right, so let's see what you guys have to say. Astro Stevo says, I hope Renault gets into the top 10. McLaren will do well. Kimi and Albon will do well as well. Well, for you, of course, I know you're hoping Daniel Ricciardo gets into the top 10. I think he will, but again, it's not going to be a P8, P9. It's probably going to be P10 at best for Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault, because even though Ricciardo, I think this season has actually driven very, very well, the Renault car just isn't complementing his skill and his talent. So I think Ricciardo will drive well, but again, because of the way the car is, he can only do so well. So yeah, Ricciardo, I think, will be in the top 10, but not looking that strong. Geordie says Mercedes have also confirmed there will be a big update at Hockenheim. Yep, I've seen that. Big update at Hockenheim. And also, by the way, guys, to let you know of updates, Ferrari have brought an update to this Grand Prix. I believe it's a new suspension. But also, to let you know about Ferrari, their next update is coming at Hungary. That's Ferrari's next update. But because Mercedes are bringing a big update, which according to one person at Mercedes, an engineer, apparently this update will really catch the attention of other teams. So we'll see what that is all about. That update for Ferrari at Hungary might not do anything against what Mercedes are going to bring. And if this new update for Mercedes really does work and pulls out another quarter of a second, I wouldn't be surprised if after the summer break, Mercedes gave up development on their 2019 car. Because, let's be honest, they're going to win the drivers and the constructors anyway. I mean, they could give up the development on the car now and they'd still win the championships. Maybe they wouldn't win, say, as many races as they would if they kept developing the car. But honestly, if they right now said, right, we're going to stop development and concentrate fully on 2020, they would comfortably still win the drivers and constructors. So they are in a very, very comfortable position, you have to say, going into the next year or so. Let me look at some other comments. Crystal Racing says Ricciardo has struggled with braking earlier and its lack of grip on the exit of corners. And also says Anaki Ueda will probably be the Ferrari strategist in 2025. Yeah, he probably will, because Ferrari don't learn. There's plenty of people at that team that are still at the team that don't need to be at the team anymore, and that have been a direct cause of why they haven't still won a championship since 2008. So yeah, that's the way Ferrari operate. But also one other thing, it has been not confirmed, but it's kind of a confirmed rumor that Simone Resta, who of course moved to Alfa Romeo as their technical director for 2019 from Ferrari, apparently Simone Resta is returning to Ferrari for 2020, but not to concentrate on the 2020 development. He is going to be working on the 2021 Ferrari car. So Ferrari, as I said in my where Ferrari and how they should rebuild for the future video, which by the way, if you haven't seen, I uploaded it probably a month ago, a month and a half ago. Make sure to check that out. I said in that video they should start right now concentrating on 2021, because they're not going to just automatically be right back at the front winning plenty of races in 2020, so they should concentrate on 2021. But apparently Simone Resta is returning to Ferrari for 2020 to concentrate on 2021, because apparently Ferrari don't need him for 2020 because they've already started working on the 2020 Ferrari car, which is a good thing, of course, but it's not exactly a surprise or a massive thing because all the teams, as soon as they start racing in Formula One in Australia, all of the teams start to work on the next car that comes the next year, or the B car if they ever bring one. So, yep, there is some news to do with Ferrari there. Crystal Racing says, looks like Alpha need to shop around for a new technical director. Well, there is a couple people around. You mean you got Paddy Lowe? I mean, I know Paddy Lowe designed a very bad Williams car, but maybe he does deserve another chance. And also, you've got Pat Fry out there that Williams apparently are trying to get. So if Simone Resta is leaving Alpha, which I think he will, because I don't see why Ferrari, considering that they own Alpha, I don't see why they would keep Simone Resta down there when they could really do with him at their team. Let me just... Crystal Racing says, please not Paddy Lowe, maybe Pat Fry. Yeah, I think... Again, when I said maybe he deserves a second chance, the reason I say maybe is because he doesn't have the greatest history as a technical director or designer, because he designed the 2013 McLaren, which was a dog of a car. Yes, he designed the Mercedes of 2014, 15, 16, but I don't think the aerodynamics of that car was the reason they won. So I don't think you can say... I mean, you can definitely congratulate him and praise him for the work he did, but I don't think he was the, the person who turned Mercedes into a winning machine. I think it was more so the power unit at the time. And by the way, if you look at Mercedes, ever since they replaced Paddy Lowe with James Allison, the Mercedes car aerodynamically has become better and better. So I think Paddy Lowe honestly wasn't as good as people think. And then at Williams, of course, he designed two absolutely terrible cars. Yes, he didn't have the finances and resources to do everything he wanted, but he still designed a terrible car at the end of the day. Right, let me look at some other comments here before we get into my predictions for qualifying, and they are a bit different from my predictions for qualifying from a week ago when we did the podcast. So yeah, Jordi says Hungary is basically no hope for Ferrari. Yeah, it is. Ferrari might as well not even turn up to that race. E7 Suspect, what is the weather forecast? Currently I'm watching Sky F1, thankfully. It looks as though it's overcast, and it doesn't look to be that windy. Definitely not as windy as it was yesterday. But the conditions still aren't, ideal. That they'd prefer it to be a bit better when it comes to the wind and the overcast conditions. So still not great, but I don't think it will rain. I think at worst we'll probably get slight drizzle, but I don't see us having a major rain shower that causes qualifying to be wet. Hopefully we do have rain that causes qualifying to be wet, because if anyone has ever seen a wet qualifying around Silverstone, you'll know that it's great, especially if you go back and look at the 2012 one. But yeah, I think most likely it'll be overcast like it was a couple years ago, I think, at Silverstone. Right, let me find say one more comment and then we'll get on to the predictions. And FIFA Ninja says Gasly's only good because he is using Max's setup. Yep, that is true. Gasly basically cannot, for the life of him, do his own setup work, so he's using Max Verstappen's setup, which it sounds great, but it can end very badly, because Gasly and Verstappen, for example, have very, very different driving styles. So Gasly might not be getting or might not get used to the way Max Verstappen wrestles around a Formula One car, but there you go. But anyway, let's now get into the predictions for qualifying for the 2019 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. By the way, guys, in the live chat, make sure to put your predictions in whilst I do mine, and then when I finish mine, for the final 15 minutes, I'll read out your predictions and see what you guys have to say in terms of who you think will finish in what position in the top 10 in qualifying today. And you know what? I'm going to do a top 10 prediction for qualifying instead of a top 3. So, here we go. On pole position will be Lewis Hamilton, because I think Lewis, even if that Mercedes car is not the fastest, as we saw last year in qualifying at Silverstone, I still think he will have enough speed to get pole, because he absolutely loves this track. He owns this track, basically. He is dominant when it comes to certain areas of the circuit. Certain areas of this circuit absolutely suit him as a driver, because Silverstone is a track where you need to attack. You've got to attack the corners. You can't very tentatively turn into corners. You've got to throw it in and just make it stick. Those corners is what Lewis Hamilton loves in Formula One. And Silverstone is basically 90% of that. There's only 4 slow corners at Silverstone. So I think Lewis Hamilton will be on pole position because of that. And because, of course, it's his home race and he'll be wanting desperately to get pole position. If he does, it will be his 7th pole at Silverstone. And Mercedes, by the way, are going for their 7th straight pole position at Silverstone. That is an incredible record. They, in terms of qualifying, have completely dominated. And really in the races as well, they've completely dominated this Grand Prix since 2013. And who can really bet against them dominating it this weekend in terms of the overall results in qualifying and the race as well? In second place, I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc, I think, will finish about a 10th behind. I think Ferrari, I think they probably will have the faster car, but it will be by, say, half a tenth. It's not going to be quarter of a second or anything like that. I think Charles Leclerc also is pretty good at Silverstone, and I think it also does suit him and his Ferrari car well. And I think Charles Leclerc will definitely, as the session goes on, be consistently in the top 2 or 3. And hopefully, even if Hamilton does get pole, hopefully Charles Leclerc is right in there competing with Lewis Hamilton for that pole position, because it would be great to see that. If he does get pole, it'll be his 3rd of his career, and Ferrari are looking for their first pole at Silverstone since 2012. So, in terms of qualifying, it doesn't look that great for Ferrari in terms of getting pole position. And if you actually look at Ferrari's history of qualifying at Silverstone, they've always gone better on race day than they have qualifying. They've always been a lot better in the races at Silverstone than they have in qualifying. So even if they don't have pole position today, but are on the front row or are both on the second row, don't count them out tomorrow, because again, they have a great record of always improving their result in the race compared to where they're starting in qualifying. Ferrari always strong on a race day in Silverstone historically. So yeah, watch out for them tomorrow. And in 3rd place, I'm going to go for Valtteri Bottas, because Valtteri has looked a bit better this weekend than I thought he would be, because I didn't think Silverstone honestly was that great of a track for him. And I think compared to his teammate, it still won't be that great of a track for him. But I think also he will be in the top 3, because I think the car will be just about good enough for him to be in there. And I think he is, after Austria, where he was, I think, better than Lewis Hamilton in terms of the race. And of course, he finished ahead of Hamilton. I think Valtteri is looking a bit more confident than he was in Canada, France, and at the start of the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. So I think Valtteri will be in P3. But if he does get pole, it'll be his first ever at Silverstone, and Mercedes are looking to get their 5th 1-2 in qualifying at Silverstone. Again, they have dominated this Grand Prix when it comes to qualifying and the races. Their 1-2s here at Silverstone have been in 2013, 2015, 2016, 2017, I believe, and 2000. And well, if they get it today, it'll be, their 5th in 2019. But guys, let me know, with 14 minutes to go in the live chat, let me know, who do you think will finish where in qualifying today? Who will get pole? Who will finish in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th? And you can do the top 10 if you want. For me, my top 10 will be Vettel 4th, Verstappen 5th, Gasly 6th, Norris 7th, Sainz 8th, and then in 9th, you know what? I'm going to go for Alexander Albon in P9. I'm going to go for a surprise. P9 for Albon. And then P10, I'm going to go for Daniel Ricciardo. So that's my top 10 for qualifying today. Let me know in the live chat, do you agree? And again, let me know your top 10. I'll read it out for the next 13 minutes or so. But before I do, just want to say again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more watch-alongs like this, because this channel is the only place you can consistently watch these type of videos on this website during the 2019 Formula 1 season. And tomorrow is the only place on this website you can catch a watch-along for the race for the 2019 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. So make sure to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe, and of course hit the notifications bell, and don't forget to smash the like button if you want to see this content continue on the channel. But again, I'll have a quick drink and then I'll read out all of your predictions, guys. Right, so move on to this picture of Lewis Hamilton, and we'll see what you guys have to say. Let me just check if I've got any super chats. Nope, I haven't. Right, let's now see what you guys are predicting. Let me go to the first one and then I'll read it all the way down. Right, the first one is from Stella, one of our moderators, of course, who says Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas. Legendary Gamer, or the Legendary Gamer, says Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc. Crystal Racing says Vettel, Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Gasly, Max. Going for Gasly at a Max is a bit of a surprise, but there you go. Norris, Sainz, Kimi, and Ricciardo. FIFA Ninja goes Vettel, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel, Gasly, Norris. Astro Stevo goes Hamilton, pole, Mercedes will look out the front row, Bottas in 2nd, then Ferrari 2nd row with Leclerc ahead of Vettel, and then Verstappen 5th, and then maybe one of the McLarens or Kimi. Right, let's look for some others. Jason C, Ham, Leclerc, and Strappen. I think he means Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen. Pedro Goldfinger, Bottas, Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel, Verstappen, Norris, Gasly, Sainz, Ricciardo, Albon. So you're going for the same drivers in the top 10, but just in different positions. Jordi says Hamilton on pole, Bottas 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Vettel 4th, Gasly 5th, Verstappen 6th, and then Norris, Raikkonen, Kvyat, Sainz. Super Vlogger Michael says Vettel for pole, Hamilton 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Bottas 4th, and Max Verstappen in P5. Brett says Hamilton on pole from Max in P2, Leclerc 3rd, Bottas 4th, Vettel 5th, and then Sainz, Raikkonen, Gasly, Ricciardo, and Norris. That's interesting. Right, let me find some others if I can. If you haven't had yours read out yet, by the way, make sure to put them in the chat and I'll read it out. Someone's saying there, Vettel for pole. Let me just find another one. I just missed one. Hold on a minute. There you go. Dexter Hull says Hamilton on pole, Bottas second, Leclerc third, Vettel fourth, Gasly fifth, Max sixth, and then Norris, Ricciardo, Sainz, and Hulkenberg. Jay Crail says Lewis on pole, Valtteri second, Max third, Sebastian fourth, and Charles Leclerc in fifth. Talking of Ferrari, there you go. There's a picture of Charles Leclerc. Erudite says Hamilton on pole, Bottas second, Vettel third. Divers Paradise 69 says thank you, Chazza. Looking forward to quali, liked and subscribed for a while now. Thank you very much for supporting the channel for so long. And yeah, great to have you along. Really is. Right, let me find some others. So Erudite for the rest says Verstappen fourth, Leclerc fifth, and then Gasly sixth, and then Norris, Ricciardo, Sainz, and Kvyat. And who else have we got? Michael Arvin says Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, Max, Gasly, Vettel, McLaren, and then Kimi and Ricciardo. Let's see if there's any others. We just scroll down. Dahomey says Leclerc on pole, Vettel second, Hamilton in third, and then Verstappen fourth and Bottas fifth, I believe. By the way, thank you, Worst, for saying thank you, Chazza. Great live streams. Thank you very much. Great to have you along as well. Kyler says Sev on pole, Hamilton second, Bottas third, Leclerc fourth, and then Max, Norris, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Sainz, and Gasly. Right, let me find some others. If I've missed any. Irvin Sesendorf, great to see you as well. Says Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, Bottas, Vettel, Gasly, Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo, Kvyat. Have we missed any more? I don't think we have. Oh no, we have. Rise says Hamilton and pole, Leclerc second, Vettel third, Bottas fourth, then Verstappen, Gasly, Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo, and Kvyat. It looks as though to me most people are going for Lewis Hamilton to get pole. And then to get pole, say the second choice to get pole from you guys seems as though it's Sebastian Vettel. So I think it's pretty clear where people think it will go today in qualifying. Hello to Kurt Borman, who says, how's it, Chazza? Going good. Hopefully going good for you. And he says, let me just... And by the way, thank you for the donation, Count Blah. I'll read it out in just a moment. Kurt Borman says, do you think Ferrari has any chance of a win this weekend, or will they bottle it again? And then he gives his prediction, Vettel on pole, Leclerc second, and Hamilton, Bottas, Gasly. Well, as I said a minute ago, or about 10 minutes ago rather, if you look at the history of Ferrari at Silverstone, they always tend to go better on the race day than qualifying day. So if their car is really that quick compared to Mercedes, then there's no reason why they can't. But if you look at the long run pace from yesterday, it is looking very bad for Ferrari. But if they can get the right grid position and get a good start tomorrow and get the right type of grid position again for both cars, there's no reason why they can't. And again, remember, even though, of course, in terms of grip on a race day, they do struggle, it is hard to pass a Ferrari because they are so quick in a straight line, and they are the quickest in a straight line. So as long as Ferrari can get themselves ahead, then it will be tough for other cars to pass. Right, let's move on to this picture. That's a Red Bull looking sexy as usual. And that donation is from Count Blah. Thank you very much, mate. He says, listening at work. Thanks for the channel. Lewis for everything. Team LH. Thank you very much, mate, for your support as usual. And yeah, listening at work. And hopefully I will keep you up to date with 5 minutes to go, by the way, until qualifying gets underway. So we are getting very, very close. And yeah, hopefully I'll keep you guys up to date with what is going on at the track at Silverstone, come rain or shine, it looks as though today. Right, let me look at some other... again, if you haven't made your prediction, then make sure to put it in the live chat, and I'll read it out. Christopher says Leclerc on pole, Hamilton second, and then Vettel in third, Verstappen fourth, Bottas fifth, and then Norris, Sainz, Gasly, Ricciardo, and Hulkenberg. Super Vlogger Michael says that Stroll will get into Q2 for once. I don't see that at all. I don't see Stroll getting into Q2. I really don't. But before I read any more out, I just want to let you guys know, any of you people that are new here, I want to let you guys know, what we do for the watch-along. So obviously we can't show the actual live footage of what's going on because that'd be obvious copyright infringement and I'd have the channel took down in seconds. So we're not going to do that. What we do is I show pictures from the circuit as the session goes on. I have a timer in the top left with how many minutes and seconds left in each of Q1 and Q2 and Q3. And I'll have a running order showing the running order of what is going on at Silverstone. And also, I will be doing myself basically a radio commentary of what is going on. So if you are watching, then just look at the bottom of the screen for the running order and you'll see what the order is. I'll try to update it as many times as I can and make it as up to date as I can. But also, if you are listening and not able to watch, then I'll try to keep you up to date precisely with what's going on at Silverstone. So there you go. And now let me get my pictures ready because Silverstone qualifying starts in just a moment. So yeah, guys, get ready. We ain't far away. And let me quickly get up a picture to show you guys the, let's say, the weather conditions at Silverstone today. Let me just get it up for you guys in just a moment, as we're currently seeing the whole intro, F1 intro on our TV screens. And yeah, if you're able to watch the qualifying, then yeah, make sure to do so if you can. But if you can't, then don't worry. I'll have you kept up to date with everything that is going on. Probably more so than the actual commentators because they tend to miss quite a lot. And so do FOM. But there you go. That's the situation at Silverstone. Packed house for qualifying. It'll be even more packed tomorrow for the race, but it's a packed house. And let me just actually move it down because it's blocking the timer. So there you go. Yeah, packed house and looking good. Looking good. Always a great crowd you get at Silverstone, and that's no different this weekend. But guys, again, if you have any remaining predictions that I haven't read out, then make sure to put yours in the chat and I will read out those before we really properly get into qualifying. By the way, the weather conditions, it is 18.7 degrees Celsius for the air temperature, which is actually quite cold for the summer, and the track temperature is 29 degrees Celsius. The teams won't necessarily be affected by that in terms of, coming to this weekend. They would have expected that because Silverstone does tend to be at times a bit cold. But if you compare it to France and Austria, it's a massive difference because in France and Austria, the track temperature was about 25 degrees hotter. So definitely a big difference between those two races and this one at Silverstone. As qualifying is about to get underway, and let me just do the text a minute for you guys. So Q1 will be underway in half a minute, and let me quickly hide the timer to get the timer ready. Yep, we are moments away from qualifying at Silverstone, and I'll get the running order up in just a moment as well. By the way, when I show the running order, and I'll basically show it now, this is not the live order. This is the order from Austria because I haven't updated it since. So once we get all 20 drivers setting a time, I'll update it to what it actually is at the track. So don't worry about that, guys. I'll keep you up to date with that. As qualifying 1 is about to get underway. As Hamilton on the TV is waving to the fans, who he's hoping will will him on to another pole position at Silverstone. And he is, as they show the driver points, 31 points clear of Valtteri Bottas. So Lewis Hamilton still in a very commanding position in the Drivers' World Championship and is still looking very good for a 6th World Championship at the end of 2019. As we're still waiting for the session to get underway properly, as there's, by the way, plenty of red McLaren hats. Great to see. Great support for the McLaren team, of course, at the home race. McLaren always very well supported. And on the TV now we're seeing Juan Pablo Montoya, famous for his battles with Michael Schumacher and his, let's just say, aggressiveness. As, yeah, we are still waiting for the session to get underway. And I think it has, but we aren't seeing the timer yet, so I can't sync it up properly. So once I can, then we'll do that. And here we go. And there you go. So, and that's perfectly synced up to the second. So qualifying is underway at Silverstone 2019 British Grand Prix. No cars yet on circuit, so we'll be waiting probably a minute or so until that occurs. Oh no, we have cars on track now. It's Alexander Albon, followed by the 2 Alphas of Giovinazzi and Kimi Räikkönen. As we are currently, and here comes Kvyat, Lance Stroll, and the 2 Haases of Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen. Here comes Lando Norris. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg. And who else have we got on track? I think that's it so far. Oh no, here comes the Williams of George Russell. So cars now starting to file out onto circuit as Lando Norris is first ever British Grand Prix. Hopefully for him, he can put on a show for the fans that have come to support him this weekend, and there are plenty of them that have come to support him this weekend. But let me now just quickly show a picture of the McLaren so you guys know what's going on if you're watching. And here come the Alphas at the very end of the lap, warming up their tyres. I think Alexander Albon will be the first driver to set a time because he was the first out on track. As, yep, here come the 2 Alphas. And Kimi Räikkönen now coming round the real final corner you have to slow down for. And now the 2 Alphas will be the first to start a lap. So here they come, starting their lap. Let's see what Alfa Romeo have for us on their first run in qualifying. As they now come down to turn 3. By the way, here is the McLaren. Let me just maneuver it around as Kimi Räikkönen's Alfa looks pretty good so far. But of course, long way to go in this lap. Plenty of fast corners to come as he now comes into Luffield. Very slow corner. Very curious to see the different lines that are took through that corner. And now comes onto the old pit straight. And now comes into the best corner in Formula 1, Copse Corner. And, well, I went to Silverstone last year for the 6 hours of Silverstone, the WEC. And that corner, even for WEC cars and GT cars, is absolutely incredible. Probably the best corner in motorsport. As Räikkönen is now coming on the hanger straight to Stowe. Swings it in. And the Alfa, again, does look nicely balanced. I'm surprised they've been so far down in the practice sessions. But here, Kimi Räikkönen comes. Giovinazzi will cross the line first with a 27.7. Kimi Raikkonen goes faster by 0.2 on a 27.5. I'll update the order again once everyone has set a time, because you've only got 3 lap times on the board. Alexander Albon now goes fastest. Stroll goes faster than the 2 Alphas. Lando Norris is now coming up to the final 2 corners. This little final chicane. And it doesn't look as though he's going to go fastest, because he hasn't been that quick, Norris, on this lap. Oh, no, he's gone fastest by 1/10 of a second. So Lando Norris goes fastest by exactly 1/10. And now Grosjean and Magnussen go first and second. Here comes Russell, who goes P10. Hülkenberg has gone P9. And who else have we got on track? We've got Ricciardo on a lap. And we've got Carlos Sainz on a lap. Carlos Sainz goes fastest on a 26.6. Ricciardo goes third on a 26.9. And we've now got Gasly, Perez, Pierre Gasly and Sergio Perez on an outlap. And now the 2 Ferraris are coming out on track to do their outlaps and do their first time. Leclerc coming out on a set of medium compound tyres. The Red Bull there of Max Verstappen coming out on a set of soft compound tyres. Interesting. As still got plenty of time to go in this session. 13 minutes left. As we're seeing here, Sergio Perez, who has now started his lap. He's coming through turn 3 and 4. And now comes on to the first DRS straight here at Silverstone. As he now comes to the end of the first sector. And where does he go? He is not too bad in the first sector. Only 0.03 of a second down. Now comes through Luffield. Car looks slightly twitchy at the rear on exit, but looks fine. And now Perez comes up to Copse Corner. And I don't think he'll be taking it flat quite yet, because I'm not sure that car's quite good enough to do that, as he now comes into Maggots, Beckett's, and now comes onto the pit straight, or not the pit straight, the hangar straight, and now comes into Stowe, swings it in, and Perez brakes now for the final 2 corners, this final chicane. And now comes to the line, and where will Sergio Perez go? P8, that's not too bad. He's gone faster than Kvyat, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg, so that's actually quite a good time, but is slightly slower than Lance Stroll, only by 12 thousandths of a second though. Here comes Sebastian Vettel, who is also on the medium compound tyres. As Giovinazzi goes second, Raikkonen now goes second, so Alpha looking good again. Albon goes back to the top on 26.4. Here comes Sebastian Vettel into Copse, and that's, yeah, he went flat out then, that's for sure. Hülkenberg now goes P2. Here comes Vettel through this very fast part of the circuit. Ferrari looking a bit more stable today than it was yesterday, as Vettel does a 102.7 for the middle sector. Turns it into Stowe. Car looks nicely balanced, as Charles Leclerc is going very quick on the medium compound compared to Lando Norris, who is now fastest from Gasly in second. Here comes Vettel then. He will go second on the medium compound behind Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc, if he doesn't make an error, will go to the very top. Here comes Charles Leclerc, medium compound. Charles Leclerc goes fastest on a 25.6, 4.5 tenths clear of Norris, as Max Verstappen goes third on the soft compound. Charles Leclerc half a second quicker than Norris and Verstappen on harder tyres. So Charles Leclerc really looking strong. As now the only drivers remaining to set a lap is Bottas and Hamilton, who now start their lap. So I'll start getting that running order ready, because I think the Mercedes on the soft compound tyres they're on are about to set some blistering lap times. So Russell and Kubica, of course, are going to be at the very back. And then it looks as though Perez will just drop into 18th with Stroll in 17th. So yeah, Racing Point not looking that great. As here comes Hamilton in Luffield. Car looking very good. Picks up slight bit of gravel, but that's fine. And now he comes into Cox. Car ahead of him, but that won't distract him. Easily flat out for Lewis Hamilton. And now comes into Maggots and Beckett's. As I'm just updating the order to what it's going to be in a moment, because Mercedes are about to go very, very quick as Bottas passes Charles Leclerc there, as Hamilton is going very, very quick in his Mercedes. This will probably take him fastest of all, as he now comes into the final two corners. Valtteri Bottas will cross the line first, and Bottas goes second, a tenth down on Leclerc. Hamilton, though, goes fastest by a tenth of a second. Right, so now, with 8 minutes to go, let me update the order to what it actually is. So, it is Lewis Hamilton on pole from Leclerc. Bottas. Norris is in P4. P5 is Max Verstappen. As who's this on another lap? I think it is Gasly, who is 8th at the moment. Vettel is 6th. I think Vettel will probably want to go out for another run just to make sure, because he's only 0.6 of a second clear of the drop zone. Is Sebastian. Sainz at the moment is 7th, and then it is Pierre Gasly in P8. Daniel Ricciardo is in P9, and then P10 is Albon, looking good again in the Toro Rosso. Here comes Gasly, and Gasly stays in P8, doesn't improve his time. And then it's Hulkenberg in P11, and then P12 at the moment is Kevin Magnussen, as Sebastian Vettel goes up to 4th, and Charles Leclerc is about to come round and go even faster than Hamilton on the harder compound. Leclerc, no, he doesn't go fastest. He does improve his time, but is 20 thousandths of a second slower than Hamilton on a harder compound. So it seems as though Ferrari do have the pace for pole. Verstappen has just gone up to P3. So that puts Bottas in P4. Vettel P5, and then Norris in P6. So that is now the order of Q1 with 6 minutes to go. As now, and by the way, Lewis Hamilton's lap at 25.5, that's a new track record for this, of course, Silverstone layout, because we have had plenty of Silverstone layouts in the past. So that's a new track record for this layout that has been around rather since 2010 was the first time we used this new layout for Formula 1, as Valtteri Bottas is currently coasting back to the pits, I think. No, he's on a lap. Thought he's coasting back to the pits. He's not. Is he going any faster? No, he's not. He's not going any faster than he has done so far. There is Charles Leclerc, by the way. The man who's really looking strong, you have to say, is definitely Charles Leclerc. Medium compound tyre. And that is, I mean, he's only, what, 0.020 off Hamilton. As here comes Bottas across the line. Improves his final sector, does Valtteri. But he stays in P4 and doesn't improve his lap time. He was only just slower, though. As here is now on the TV, Romain Grosjean, who is looking to get out of the drop zone. He's in P16. The drivers at risk in the drop zone are Grosjean, Stroll, Perez, and of course, Russell and Kubica. Also in danger of being knocked out, I think, is probably from Ricciardo down. So that's Ricciardo, Albon, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Kvyat, and Giovinazzi. Those drivers have got to improve if they want to make it into qualifying 2, as Romain Grosjean now comes into Stowe. He is not improving though on this lap. He hasn't improved his first or second sector so far. So, not looking great for Grosjean. And here he comes to the line. And he does though go P11, so great end to the lap, but it said he didn't improve his sectors at all, so I don't understand how that's the case, but there you go. Magnussen comes to the line, but stays P13. Let me quickly update that. So Grosjean is P11, Hülkenberg is P12, Magnussen is now in P13, P14 is the Iceman, Kimi Raikkonen, and then it's Kvyat 15th and Giovinazzi 16th. So Alpha and Racing Point not looking that great at the moment. Looking like the two slowest cars, as here comes Russell, and Russell stays in 19th place. That's to be expected, of course, but we now have 3 minutes to go until Charles Leclerc is now, hold on a minute, what am I trying to say? 3 minutes to go until, I was reading the chat then, sorry. Someone just put Charles Leclerc for some reason. As Danny Kvyat does a lap, stays 15th though. We've now got 2.5 minutes to go. Let's see who does get knocked out. Antonio Giovinazzi goes P10 for Alpha. So let me quickly update that before everyone else absolutely butchers that time. So Giovinazzi now P10, and then it is Albon, Grosjean, and then Hülkenberg in 13th, and then you've got Magnussen in 14th, and then 15th is Raikkonen, and now Danny Kvyat is in the drop zone. So in the drop zone with 2 minutes to go is Danny Kvyat, Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez, George Russell, and Robert Kubica. That is who needs to get out of the drop zones. We're seeing Kimi Raikkonen wrestling his Alpha through the final couple of corners. And let me quickly post a picture of Lewis Hamilton, who currently has is currently fastest, but has the new track record at Silverstone. That, though, will be smashed to bits later on once they turn the engines up even more. There you go. There is Lewis Hamilton, as Nico Hülkenberg is on a lap, but hasn't improved his first sector so far, as Nico Hülkenberg now comes through into the middle sector, and he now comes up to the final corner, and Nico Hülkenberg, let's see where he goes. By the way, guys, if I am behind by a bit more, then I'm sorry about that, but I can't do anything about it. Hülkenberg goes P12. Romain Grosjean goes up to P9. That should be good enough, as there is rain apparently in the area. And yeah, the clouds are definitely looking dark. But yeah, Grosjean has just gone up to P9 as qualifying 1 is about to end. Can Kvyat, Stroll, or Perez get out the drop zone? Let's see. Here comes Kimi Raikkonen, looking very quick through Maggots and Beckett, and is up on his time so far, and looks as though he will get into the next part of qualifying. Lance Stroll, though, also up, so he's looking competitive. Kvyat, not so much. He's about 2 tenths down, Kvyat. Here comes Kimi Raikkonen then to the line. And Kimi Raikkonen goes 13th. Let's see what Lance Stroll can do. Lance Stroll comes to the line and he stays in P17. No surprise there. And Danny Kvyat stays in P16. So the only driver that can improve and get into qualifying 2 is Sergio Perez, surely. Here he comes to the line, and Sergio Perez does get into qualifying 2 and pushes Kevin Magnussen out. So Magnussen is out of qualifying at the moment, and I don't think is on a lap. So Kevin Magnussen is out of qualifying. What a disaster for him. Kvyat also is out. So is Lance Stroll. And Russell and Kubica. Let me just quickly do some of the order. So Grosjean got up to P9. Ricciardo got into P10. And then it's, Giovinazzi in P11. By the way, great job by Sergio Perez to get into qualifying 2. The Albon was P12, and then it was Raikkonen in 13th, Hulkenberg in P14, and then P15 was Sergio Perez. But yeah, that is the end of qualifying 1. And let me now update the text on the screen. So Q1 is over. So there you go. Again, for you guys who are watching, if I am more behind than usual, I can't do anything about that because, again, I had issues with my skybox and I've had to find an alternative route, which may have caused me to be a bit more behind than usual, but I'm still bringing you qualifying still, so don't worry, nothing's really massively changed, and don't worry, I'll still keep you guys absolutely up to date with what is going on. But that is qualifying 1 over with, and qualifying 2 will be getting underway very, very soon. Let me get the timers ready for that. Magnussen getting knocked out in qualifying 1 is not something you would normally expect, because Kevin Magnussen is really good at qualifying. Look at Austria, look at Monaco, look at Australia, Spain. He's very good at qualifying, Magnussen, but today just hasn't got a handle of the car, and that's really disappointing for him, because normally he tends to get the best out of the Haas car out of those 2 drivers. So if he's down in 16th, then that Haas car must be quite bad. I know Grosjean got up to P9, but I don't think that's genuine pace. I think that's most likely because Grosjean set his lap right at the end on a grippier track to get that time. So Haas are not looking good. Kvyat, I have to say, surprisingly out in P17. I thought he would be probably P13 or P12 today. Very surprising that he gets knocked out there, and definitely not good enough if you look at where his teammate is. And Lance Stroll, is anyone surprised that Lance Stroll is in P18? It's not a surprise, is it? It's really, really not a surprise. The guy is terrible when it comes to qualifying, and unless the Racing Point becomes too good to get knocked out in Q1, he will always get knocked out in Q1 because he's not good enough to get into Q2. The last time he got into Q2, I think, was Suzuka 2018. I think, in the Williams. So, yeah, very, very disappointing for Stroll again. Perez, I think, did well to just about get in, but still Stroll could have done better than P18, as we're seeing replays of, I think, Kvyat struggling with his Toro Rosso with a bit of oversteer. Yeah, Q2 will be getting underway shortly. And let me actually get the text for that ready. And by the way, guys, let me know in the chat what you thought of qualifying 1 and what happened in qualifying 1. There you go. I've got the text ready there, and Q2 should be getting underway very, very soon. Right, let me look at some other comments. Crystal Racing says Magnussen went wide on the gravel before abandoning his supposed flying lap. That's a shame for him. It really is, because again, he tends to be getting the best out of the car, especially in qualifying. So that's really disappointing for him and for Haas F1, who seemingly just get worse and worse. Crystal Racing says, to be fair, Stroll's best ever qualifying position at Silverstone is P16. If that, and I think it was from 2017, then that just shows you how bad he is at that track, because in 2017, the Williams of Felipe Massa, I think, was in the top 10 and was very competitive. So, yeah, Stroll, not known for getting enough out of the car at any point during his entire career, really. Admiral says, Checo good, Stroll bad. Yeah, I think that's the case. Crystal Racing says, and this is funny, it's a great cause that Racing Point are doing, but it is kind of funny. Racing Point are donating money to a breast cancer charity for every position they gain in the race. By the way, yes, that is true. That's not a lie. Something Stroll should do well at. Well, absolutely. And here comes cars on circuit. So let me, in a moment, sync up the timing of the timer for Q2, which will come up on the TV hopefully in just a moment, as the two Mercedes cars, I believe, are on medium compound tyres. I know Lewis Hamilton is, and I think Valtteri Bottas will be as well. By the way, guys, I'll put the timer on screen as soon as it appears on the TV so I can sync it up precisely. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton now coming through on his outlap to Copse Corner. They'll be starting soon. And so will Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri is ahead of him on track. And here we go. Here's the timer. I don't know why they didn't show it for some reason. Very lazy, RFOM. So in about half a minute, I will sync up the timer, as we've got 13 and a half minutes to go in qualifying 2. Everyone is on an outlap except for Sebastian Vettel. Hopefully there's no issue with Vettel's car. And Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, Bottas and Gasly are all going to try and set their fastest Q2 time on a set of mediums. That is interesting, as here we go. I'll sync it up right now. So 13 minutes to go. And Lucas saying apparently Vettel has a DRS problem. Hopefully that doesn't keep him in the pits too long. As Lewis Hamilton now comes to the end of the first sector, and FOM for some reason aren't showing us sector time, so they've completely messed that up. As he's now coming on the exit of Luffield and now comes onto the old pit straight into Copse Corner. Let's see how quick he is on the medium compound, the harder compound of tyre. Still very quick. Only lost about 5 kilometers an hour going through the corner, and that was definitely a flat out experience there for Lewis Hamilton, as he now comes to the hangar straight and does a 102.6 for the middle sector, which is not massively quick. Definitely not massively quick. As he now comes through Stowe, car looks nailed, and now comes to the final 2 corners. And Valtteri Bottas will set the first time on a 25.8. That is 0.3 slower than Hamilton went earlier. And Hamilton also does a 25.8. So they lost about 3.5 tenths of a second on the harder compound compared to what they did in qualifying 1. Albon now goes 3rd, Perez 4th, Giovinazzi 5th. Not everyone has set a time yet. Daniel Ricciardo is only a 10th down on Lewis Hamilton after 2 sectors. So looking all right for Renault with Ricciardo, as Ricciardo now comes up to the final 2 corners. Charles Leclerc also coming to the end of his lap. Hülkenberg now up to 3rd. Here comes Daniel Ricciardo. And Ricciardo goes 3rd ahead of Carlos Sainz. Very impressive time by Ricciardo. And he was about 1/4 of a second quicker than Sainz. Here comes Charles Leclerc, who goes fastest on the same tyres by 0.2 of a second. Game on. Game on. In qualifying at Silverstone, Lando Norris goes P5. Pierre Gasly goes P4 on the medium tyres. That's a very good time from Pierre Gasly. Max Verstappen on the mediums goes P5. Slower than Gasly again. What is wrong with Max Verstappen this weekend? He's off the pace for some reason. And here comes Sebastian Vettel, who is going to start the race. If he completes this lap and does this as his fastest time, he will start the race on the soft compound tyre. That's very interesting. But as Vettel now goes through and gets his lap started, which he has, I'll start updating the order to what it will be once Vettel sets his time. So the drivers really at risk are Grosjean, Raikkonen, Antonio Giovinazzi. So Alpha, again, as I said a moment ago, not looking too good. Perez, P12. That's what once Vettel sets his time, because he will go faster than Perez, no doubt about that. So once Vettel sets his time, then in the drop zone it will be Albon, Perez, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Grosjean. As Vettel now comes through Maggots and Beckett's, now comes up to the end of the second sector. And he's actually quite a bit slower than Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre. I don't know why that is, but there you go. And Vettel now coming up to the final 2 corners. And Sebastian Vettel now comes around the final corner and he will go into P8 only. That's not that impressive. So Sainz is 9th. Bottas goes up to 2nd. Only 1/4 of a tenth behind Charles Leclerc. We have Vettel only in P5. As Lewis Hamilton comes back into the pits, even though he was on another lap. So it's Leclerc with 8 minutes to go in qualifying 2. It's Leclerc fastest from Bottas 2nd. And then Lewis Hamilton is in 3rd from Gasly 4th, which is very surprising. Here comes Kimi Raikkonen to the line, and Kimi Raikkonen stays in P14, even though he does improve his lap time. Verstappen is 5th, Ricciardo is 6th, and then it is Lando Norris in P7. So that is your current order with 7.5 minutes to go in qualifying 2. 7.5 minutes to go, and you have to say, with Charles Leclerc, Ferrari are looking pretty good. They look as though they can absolutely get pole position. Of course, in qualifying 3, we'll see how quick they really are, but they do look very quick. As Max Verstappen is completing another lap. We'll see where this puts him as he comes up to the line now and will probably go faster than he did before. Yes, he does. He goes P4. I'll update that in just a moment. I just want to post a different picture of home favourite, Lewis Hamilton. There you go. That's when he came out onto the track. So let me quickly update that. So Verstappen now goes P4. That's more like it. But I will say Gasly, even though he's about a tenth and a half down on Verstappen, that's more like it. He doesn't have to be faster than Max Verstappen, but he has to be within quarter of a second. And he's about a tenth and a half down. So for me, that's pretty good. Can't ask any more really from Pierre Gasly. As now, all the cars except the 2 Red Bulls are back in the pits as we wait now to see what the drivers can do on their final qualifying 2 runs. As Verstappen is, still out on track, going through Copse Corner. He'll be in the pits very soon. And, well, Sebastian Vettel will have to come out on track again if he wants to get into qualifying 3. But the drivers at risk, of course, the people in the elimination zone are at risk. That's Albon, Perez, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Grosjean. But Hülkenberg, Sainz, and even Lando Norris don't look that safe right now to get into the next part of qualifying. So, yeah, not looking great for McLaren right now. Not looking as great as we thought it would. But there's still time for them to put in the lap that we know they can. And as we all wait, I am now going to post another picture, this time of a Red Bull of, I think it's Pierre Gasly. But I just want to say again, guys, if you are new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe for more watch-alongs like this, because we do watch-alongs consistently for every race weekend. And I'll be the only place on this website tomorrow where you can catch a watch-along for the 2019 British Grand Prix. So make sure to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or just go to my homepage, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and also smash the like button if you want to see this content continue on the channel. But now we have, who do we have on track? Romain Grosjean on track, who is not going that quick, I'm afraid, for his first sector at least. Not that quick at all. He needs an extra 3 or 4 tenths of a second from this lap, based on what he's done so far in the first sector, if he is to get into qualifying 3 with 4 minutes to go. Comes through Maggots and Beckett's. Car looking not too bad, but it hasn't been that quick of a car this weekend. And Grosjean, is massively down on what he needs to do to get into qualifying 3. And he now comes to the end of this lap, and this lap may improve his position, but it won't get him into the top 10, I don't think. Here comes Romain Grosjean. And he stays P15. That's an awful lap. That's an absolutely terrible lap. And he's still half a second slower than the car ahead of him, Kimi Raikkonen. So Grosjean is about a second off getting in the top 10. So, quite frankly, he has no chance of getting in the top 10. The Haas P15 and P16, it looks like. Albon comes to the end of his lap and stays in P11. The track's not really ramping up in terms of grip today. Not many people, when they go out for a final run, are really improving their times. It's very, very curious, that is. The soft tyres are not really working at the moment in qualifying. And I think the teams are a bit surprised by that, because normally you'd see the team's massively improving on their times, but they're not. They're not improving that much, if at all. And now we have Leclerc, Bottas, Ricciardo, Norris, Vettel, Gasly, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Perez, Giovinazzi, and Kimi Raikkonen on an outlap. Leclerc and Bottas and Gasly, I don't think will set a time. And Verstappen now comes out on track. I don't think they'll set a time because they'll want to start on the medium, but Ricardo, Norris, Vettel, Sainz, Hulkenberg have got to improve in case others in the elimination zone do improve. So here comes Sergio Perez, who currently sits in P12. If he finished there, he'd take that. But he wants more if he can get it. And here he comes to the start of his final run in qualifying 2 at Silverstone. Comes into turn 3 and 4. Racing points slowing down nice enough. Comes into 4. And the car looks nicely balanced so far on this lap, as he now swings it in as he's 9,000ths of a second up on Albon. I don't know why they're showing Albon's sector time. He's in the elimination zone. We need to see Hulkenberg's in comparison to people in the drop zone. I don't understand why they're doing that, but there you go. Perez now comes into Cop's corner, flat out, and will now come into Maggots and Beckett's. I don't think he'll be too far off getting in the drop zone, you know. This racing point with Sergio Perez at the wheel looks slightly better than I thought it would. Saying that, he's just done a slower middle sector, but there you go. Grosjean is going a lot faster than he was a moment ago. So is Antonio Giovinazzi. So we could see some improvements here. Here comes Sergio Perez into the final corner. And can Sergio Perez get into qualifying 3? No, he can't. Sergio Perez P12. Grosjean now goes P12. As qualifying 2 has finished. Giovinazzi goes P8 in the Alpha. That's a great lap. Raikkonen goes P10 and pushes Sainz out. And Sainz fails to improve and is out. Sainz is out. Now P12 because Hulkenberg goes up to P7. Albon goes P8. Vettel is now in the drop zone. Where is Sebastian Vettel? Is he on a lap? He better be. As Norris P7. Sebastian Vettel is improving and doing enough to get into the next part of qualifying. And here comes Sebastian Vettel, but Carlos Sainz out in P13. That's embarrassing for McLaren. As here comes Sebastian Vettel on his lap, and he goes P5. So there you go. The Sebastian Vettel P5, and that is the end of qualifying 2, as Charles Leclerc goes even faster at the top on a 25.5. So Gasly P6, and then you got Ricciardo P7. And then Norris in P8. So Norris for McLaren still looking good. By the way, Charles Leclerc has now done a new track record, 125.546. Again, though, that'll be broken very soon. Hulkenberg doing well to get in. And also, and I said he was a dark horse, and I said the team really was a dark horse, Alexander Albon, P10. Great run for Albon, back more so to how he was a few races ago. Giovinazzi P11 again, out qualifying Kimi Raikkonen for the 3rd time in the last 4 races. Alpha, I don't think will be too disappointed with that, P11 and P12. Carlos Sainz, though, will be massively disappointed with P13. Grosjean P14, that's poor, and Perez P15. To be fair, I don't think Perez could have done any more. So there you go, out in qualifying 2, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Sainz, Grosjean, Perez. And now we wait for qualifying, oh not Q2 is over, let me put that. Now we wait for the start of Q3 and to see who can get pole position. And I think, guys, it has become pretty clear with Charles Leclerc that Ferrari can get pole today. I think it has become pretty clear. I don't know what's wrong with Sebastian Vettel. He hasn't been on it at all this weekend. He really has not been on it at all this weekend. So I don't know why he is down in P5. And by the way, Vettel on the soft compound tyre. But again, if he goes out there and gets on the front row and gets to start the soft, his strategy for the race looks a lot better. But if he doesn't get in the top 3, then he is looking very bad for the race, considering the tyre he gets to start on. As we're seeing a replay of Leclerc's lap. Leclerc, and to be honest, the Ferrari looks very, very nicely balanced. Very nicely balanced. And I think that's mostly to do with the lack of proper corners that you have to slow down for. A lot of Silverstone is just flat out, and you just have to slightly turn the wheel into some of the corners. They are very hard, some of these corners, but they're not, proper slow corners that you've got to really throw the car into and, get the braking right and stuff like that. Stuff that Ferrari definitely struggle with. But let me just quickly get this. There you go. So Lewis Hamilton, can he get pole again for what would be the 5th time in a row if he got pole? That would be incredible. That honestly would be incredible if he had 5 consecutive pole positions at Silverstone. That would be incredible. We'll see in a few moments whether he can do that. But I think we are in for a good fight for pole between Hamilton, Leclerc and Bottas. And hopefully Sebastian Vettel as well. Maybe even a Max Verstappen, because Max wasn't that far off at the end of Q2. So, yeah, hopefully we are in for a good end to qualifying in just a moment. Let me quickly get this text ready for you guys. Q3 has not started yet, but it will be very, very soon. So don't worry, I've got it all covered. By the way, great to see 600 of you watching live. Not as many as we've had before, but there are, some factors to do with that. The main one is that Channel 4, of course, free terrestrial TV are showing the race, I believe, this weekend. So that has something to do with it. But it's still great to have every single one of you along, all 600 of you and any more that join, because every single one of you make the stream as great as it is. You really do, because I don't even know, if you guys weren't around, I don't know what I would even talk about, because you guys, keep the stream entertaining with your comments and your reactions. So, keep it up, and hopefully you'll continue watching the rest of the stream, as qualifying 3 should be underway pretty soon. Give it another, say, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes at most. One thing I will say is I am hoping that when Q3 starts, we don't get what we had in Austria, where cars are waiting in the pit lane for 5 minutes before they go out on track. Hopefully, not, immediately, but hopefully they get out there within the first minute of the session getting underway, because we don't want to see cars in the pits for 5 minutes not doing anything, waiting for no reason, because it's not good for TV, it's not good for entertainment purposes, and also if there's a red flag, then the teams are gonna lose out. And that's why I don't think they should do that. I always think you should get out there and get a lap time on the board before anything happens, so you avoid any red flag chaos or yellow flag chaos. So hopefully the teams get right out there in just a moment. But yeah, the drivers in Q3 are Leclerc, Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, Gasly, Vettel. And then the midfield runners are Norris, the 2 Renaults of Ricciardo and Hülkenberg, and the Toro Rosso, surprisingly, of Alexander Albon. And I would love, again, to give a shout out to Alexander Albon, because that is one of the best performances so far in qualifying for me. For him to get into the top 10, that's pretty good. And if he can get any higher, then he will be one of my stars of qualifying, honestly. But we now await the start of qualifying 3, and the Mercedes mechanics are getting ready to whip off those tyre covers and get Hamilton out on track. And he is about to come out on track on the soft compound tyre with Valtteri Bottas. By the way, when it comes to tyre choice, everyone out of the top teams is starting on mediums except for Sebastian Vettel. So Vettel has to get a good grid position, because if he ends up P4 or P5, then his race tomorrow is effectively over because of the tyre he starts on. And the medium is performing a lot better than the soft this weekend. And the cars are now on track. So once the timer comes up on the screen, I'll get that all properly synced up, as the 2 Mercedes and 2 Renault cars are on circuit. So yeah, just give me, I don't know, 45 seconds, guys. And then I'll have the timer back on the screen, because of course I need to sync it up properly so you guys know how long is left. As Lewis Hamilton is now coming up to Copse Corner. Here comes the 2 Ferraris and Gasly and Verstappen. No sign of Lando Norris yet. Maybe Norris will do a just one run. Alexander Albon also is now on circuit. Bit of the odd one out is Albon, considering that he hasn't been in Q3 a lot this season. But here come 2 Mercedes to start their lap. And Lewis Hamilton will be the first driver to do that run, as I sync up the timer right now. So 10 minutes to go in qualifying 3. Let's see whether Ferrari can get pole position. Let's see. As here comes Lewis Hamilton into turn 1. And now through 2 into turn 3, and turns it in, and the car's looking pretty good right now. Into 4 he goes, and yep, the car is looking very good as he now comes to the end of the first sector. 27.4 for the first sector. Hamilton all bit skittish on the turn in into Luffield. That would have cost him time. He was faster, though, than Valtteri Bottas in the first sector, but he definitely lost, say, 1/10.5, maybe 2/10 in that, with that error. Here comes Hamilton into Maggots and down into Beckett's. And now we'll come up to the middle sector point. Let's see how quick he is. It's a 1:02.1. That's very quick. Very, very quick. Valtteri Bottas, though, even faster. Bottas is 3/10 faster than Lewis Hamilton so far on this lap. But here comes Hamilton up to the final 3 corners. Into the final chicane, goes wide on entry. Hamilton now comes to the line, and Lewis Hamilton does a 25.3. Here comes Valtteri Bottas, though, who does a 25.0. Quarter of a second clear. Valtteri looking strong so far for pole, as Ricciardo goes 3rd, Hülkenberg 4th, waiting for other people to do their laps. Here's Hamilton. So yeah, turned in, and the car got oversteer, and he had to correct it. Did very well to correct it, and still finish quarter of a second slower than Bottas. So you can guarantee you that Lewis Hamilton can go a lot faster than that. As here comes, and that's a new track record by Bottas, 25.093. Here comes Max Verstappen to the final chicane. Red Bull looking better this weekend than it has done in the past few races, but not quite quick enough. And Max Verstappen goes P3 on a 25.4. That's actually not too bad. Here comes Sebastian Vettel, only P5 for Vettel. Here comes Charles Leclerc, who goes only P4 behind Max Verstappen. So Red Bull with Verstappen looking great there, but Ferrari, where has their pace gone? That's a shocker. And now with 7 minutes to go, they need to somehow improve on that, they're half a second down on Valtteri Bottas, and we know Lewis Hamilton can go even faster, so that is not looking good for Ferrari. Max Verstappen, though, P3, if he can maintain that, he's looking great for tomorrow. And then it's Leclerc in P4, Gasly P5. I think his lap time, Gasly, is good enough. I mean, he's ahead of Vettel, which is good. Only by 4 thousandths of a second, though. And Gasly is exactly 0.3 of a second behind Verstappen. So if Leclerc and Vettel mess up their final running, Gasly can improve. Gasly could end up on the second row. So hopefully Pierre has more to come from himself. By the way, Ricciardo and Hülkenberg are P7 and P8, but Lando Norris and Alexander Albon have not yet set a lap time. So, as we've now got the two Ferraris coming back into the pit lane, and they will be disappointed after that first run. They've lost half a second from Q2 to Q3. Maybe Mercedes was sandbagging after all. Who knows? But I think they can definitely get ahead of Verstappen. I think if they finish behind him, that would be a disaster for Ferrari. And would really showcase how they've gone backwards this season, because they should not be in 4th and 6th on the grid. They should be, you know, getting at least both cars into the top 4, as all the cars except for Norris and Albon are now in the pits with 5 minutes to go. And let me now get a picture up of Valtteri Bottas, who is currently on pole position by 1/4 of a second. Can he get pole? If he can, it'd be vital for his world championship, because he's 31 points behind, and if he's going to mount a comeback, it must begin now. And if he got pole, that'd be a great confidence boost going into the race tomorrow, as Lando Norris now starts his, what is probably going to be his final qualifying run here at Silverstone. Where can Norris go? Let's see. As he comes through turn 3 and turn 4, he should be able to get P7. A good gap between Vettel and Ricciardo. To do that, let's hope he can. He comes up to the end of the first sector. He's already 4 tenths down on Bottas. Just shows you how quick the Mercedes are in the first sector. But now Norris comes into the middle sector, which is basically, because the cars are so good nowadays in terms of grip, it's basically all about power. As Norris comes through Copse Corner at 295 kilometers an hour. And Norris now coming through to the middle sector point. He's 1.2 down on Bottas, so it looks as though he's probably going to go P8 with this lap. Alexander Albon, though, looking just as quick. Good for him, but here comes Norris. Final chicane into the final corner. And Lando Norris goes, P8 on a 26.6. Here comes Alexander Albon. Where will he go? He stays in P10, but is only a 10th down on Norris and Hülkenberg. Actually, he's half a 10th off of Hülkenberg. So Albon looking very quick. So let me quickly update that. So Norris up to P8 for now, as the two Renaults come back out on track with the two Ferraris and the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. As we now have just over 2 minutes to go in qualifying. So, will Valtteri Bottas get his first pole position since the Spanish Grand Prix? If he did, again, it would be a massive confidence boost to his World Championship bid. as he's now passing Norris and Albon, who have just finished their laps with 2 minutes to go in qualifying. And he now comes into Maggots and Beckett, does Valtteri Bottas with Hamilton close behind. There's his wife, I think. Yep, wife on the TV, Amelia Bottas, Olympic swimmer. So here we go then. Let's see what they all have. As Bottas will go first ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And I think as long as Hamilton improves his time but doesn't make an error, he should get pole. But we'll see what Valtteri can do about that. As now, with a minute to go in qualifying, the final laps for pole position get underway. As the crowd wills on Lewis Hamilton to another pole position at Silverstone. Through turn 1, through turn 2, down into turn 3. And now into turn 4. Car looking active, but under control for now. As Lewis Hamilton and Bottas comes to the end of the first sector. And Bottas is slower than he was before. What is Hamilton doing? He's also slower than he was before, but of course made the error right after the first sector point. So Hamilton should improve his middle sector. As now they both come on to the old pit straight. Bottas goes flying through Copse corner. So does Lewis Hamilton. And now into Maggots and Beckett. Can Hamilton get it? Bottas, how is he doing? He is still slower than he was before. Bottas is not doing enough. Lewis Hamilton is also not doing enough. He's still a 10.5 down, even though he improved his middle sector. So Lewis Hamilton needs about 0.2 of a second in the final sector. I'm not sure he can do it. Can he prove me wrong? Here he comes. Valtteri Bottas stays on pole. Lewis Hamilton comes across the line and is second by 0.006 of a second. 0.006, and Charles Leclerc is currently, after 2 sectors, up on Valtteri Bottas. Can Charles Leclerc steal pole position away from the silver arrows? Let's see as he comes into the final chicane. Can he do it? As Vettel has stayed P6. What disaster for him. Here comes Charles Leclerc. No, he goes third on a 25-1. Only about 0.08 down as Gasly goes 5th. Where does Max Verstappen go? P4, but only 0.2 down on Bottas. What a close end to qualifying that was, but Valtteri Bottas gets pole by 0.006 of a second. What a great end to qualifying that was. A shame it wasn't 1,000th of a second quicker for Bottas, because then it would have been 0.007. But what a great end to qualifying there. Verstappen 4th, Gasly 5th, Vettel in 6th. Vettel, I have to say, I think his qualifying performance today has been absolutely terrible. He's never been anywhere near his teammate Charles Leclerc, but that top 4 looks very tasty for tomorrow. They're all within 0.2 of a second. Whoever said Formula 1 wasn't close, it clearly is. As Ricciardo is 7th, Norris is 8th, Albon is 9th. That's a great performance by him. And then Hulkenberg is in P10. But guys, qualifying is over. And that is, running along the bottom of your screen, the final finishing order of qualifying today at Silverstone. So, and I'll just in a moment read it out. I just want to get another picture if I can. Yeah, qualifying is now over. Let me see if I can find a final picture. And no, I can't. So, your final order of qualifying is on pole position, Valtteri Bottas by 0.006 of a second. From Lewis Hamilton 2nd, Charles Leclerc 3rd. Charles Leclerc was only 0.08 down on pole. Leclerc, I think, did very well there. P4, Max Verstappen, within 2/10 of pole. That Red Bull is really, really coming alive now in 2019. They are now a team that is moving forward a lot after Austria because they were not expected with Max Verstappen to be that close. Gasly P5, Vettel, shocking performance in P6, Ricciardo P7, Norris P8, Albon P9, Hulkenberg in P10, and then P11 is Antonio Giovinazzi, P12 Kimi Raikkonen, P13 Carlos Sainz, that's a disappointment for him. P14 is Romain Grosjean, P15 is Sergio Perez, P16 is Kevin Magnussen, P17 Daniel Kvyat, P18 Lance Stroll, P19 George Russell, and of course at the back is Robert Kubica. But there you go, that is the end of qualifying. And let me get another picture of Valtteri Bottas getting pole. And well, I will say Valtteri was kind of not lucky to get pole, but he was definitely lucky that Hamilton didn't have more speed in him, because Valtteri, his final lap was actually not that good. Maybe his first run was so good that the second run was never going to be as good. I don't know, but there you go. There's your pole position, man. That's his first ever pole at Silverstone. And also, that is his first pole position since the 2019 Spanish Grand Prix. He'll be hoping to get a better start, though, than he got at that Grand Prix back in Barcelona. But guys, for the next 20-25 minutes, make sure to react with me to what has happened today in qualifying. What do you think about Valtteri Bottas getting pole position? What do you think about Leclerc, Verstappen, Vettel's terrible performance, Gasly's improved performance, you have to say? Even though he could have probably been, say, slightly closer in lap time to Verstappen, but in terms of position, I can't fault him. What do you think about Renault improving a lot in qualifying? What do you think about McLaren not doing that great, honestly, compared to what we thought they would do? And yeah, let me know what you think for everyone else. But guys, because it is so hot in my studio and I'm sweating like a pig, I'm going to quickly have a drink and then I'll come right back to you guys in the live chat and I'll read out your comments as to what has happened in qualifying today. Right, so let's see what you guys have to say. Christopher says, I'm out too later. Thanks again, Chaz. Thank you very much, Christopher. By the way, to clarify again, yes, I might be a bit more behind than I normally am, but I can't do anything about that because, again, to let you guys know, the reason I didn't do a practice watch along is because my Skybox broke and I've had to use an alternative system to try and watch qualifying. So this is the best I can do at the moment, because if I can't do this, then there wouldn't be a watch along at all. So yes, that is a shame, but if I didn't have this certain system in place to watch qualifying, then I wouldn't be able to, bring you this stream. So that is unfortunately the way it has to be for the moment. Hamid asks, is it supposed to be raining tomorrow? I don't know. I really don't know. We'll have to see once we get into the morning and see what the weather's playing at. It was probably, I think if the qualifying took place maybe an hour later, there might have been some rain in qualifying today, but it was, as I thought it would be, overcast. But yeah, let's see what you guys have to say. Nib says, I'm off. See you tomorrow, Chaz and chat. Absolutely. Nib, by the way, will be on the stream tomorrow with me to do the race watch along and commentate on the 52 laps of the 2019 British Grand Prix and I think we are in for a good race because look how close it is between Bottas and Hamilton, and also Leclerc's right in there with Max Verstappen. I think Charles Leclerc's pace in the race will not be as good as qualifying, but if he gets ahead at the start, he will be pretty hard to overtake, especially with that Ferrari power unit. And then Max Verstappen, as we know from Austria, when it comes to race pace, can you really deny the guy? I mean, tomorrow, I think Max Verstappen is going to be right in there for a podium. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes on the podium, if not even higher, because again, after Austria, can you really doubt him? He's actually a tenth and a half closer to pole position today than he was in Austria. So if that equates in the same way it did in Austria, he could have the best car tomorrow. Red Bull, with that new front wing that they brought at the Austrian Grand Prix, have definitely took a big step forward in 2019. Divers Paradise says, thank you very much, Chazza. You're a legend. Later, thank you very much for coming along. Great to have you and everyone. Right, let me look at some other comments. TJ says, cheers, Chazzy. That's a new one. Right, let me find some other comments here. Connor Chapman says, Chaz, your feed is almost a minute slow. Again, I can't do anything about that. If I didn't watch qualifying and I'll be watching the race tomorrow in the way I am now because my Skybox is broke, then I wouldn't be able to bring you a watch along. So this is the best I can do. Astro Stevo says, apologies if missed it already, but will you be doing a qualifying review? And if so, in how much time after this ends, please? So we'll be finishing in probably 20 minutes time at most. And then the qualifying review will be out at either 4:15 UK time or 4:30 PM UK time. So the review for qualifying will be out in either exactly an hour from now or an hour and 15 minutes from now. So there you go. 6,000 was just really close. Someone's saying, can Vettel just retire, please? Such a dead weight. Yeah. Well, I don't think he should retire because I think this weekend he just hasn't got hooked up to the car. I don't think that's necessarily been a consistent thing with Vettel, but you have to say, ever since Canada, he has been off the boil completely. He hasn't been in the top 3 for a qualifying since Canada. In France, he was P7. In Austria, P10, but he did have a reliability issue. And then today, P6. And that performance, I'm afraid, is absolutely terrible. And I'm going to be honest, I think Sebastian Vettel is going to finish probably P5 at best because the front 4 are too quick and they're on a better compound to start with. So Sebastian's race tomorrow is completely compromised and therefore destroyed. Crystal Racing says, fabulous performance by Pierre Vettel. Connor Chapman says, Vettel sounded non-existent when he was talking about his DRS not working at the beginning of the session. Well, I think it was working when he did his laps. I'm sure it was because he would be even further down without DRS around this track because with the momentum you carry on the corners or out of the corners when you get to the DRS zones, it does add for a lot of time. If you are missing DRS, you're losing probably half a second at lap at most if you're not able to use DRS. So if he had that, maybe he would be in P4, but I think he did have it. So I think it's just poor performance, really. Right, let's look for some more comments for the next few minutes from you guys. Martin Smalley says, if Lewis goes for a one stop in the race, runs the rest of the race on yellow tyres, he will win. Well, he's starting on the yellow tyres, so he'll have to go on to a different compound eventually. And I think tomorrow it is going to be a one-stop race, because not necessarily the tyre wear isn't bad around here. It's not just that, but the pit lane loss at Silverstone is probably the biggest on the calendar. If you pit, you lose half a minute in pitting, so you won't want to pit an extra time because you'll lose half a minute. If you have the gap to pit and get back out in the same position, then yeah, you could do a two-stop. But yeah, it's only going to be a one-stop race tomorrow. And again, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Gasly, Leclerc start on medium tyres, and Vettel starts on the soft. And Vettel is at the back of the top 6 drivers. So Vettel's race is over. Red Bull are looking good for, with Verstappen at least, are looking good for a podium. Leclerc needs really to have a good opening first few laps if he's going to compete for the win. And then if Valtteri is going to stop Lewis Hamilton from winning, he has to stay ahead at the start, because if Lewis gets in the lead, game over. Game over, because as we know, Valtteri Bottas is at his best on a weekend in qualifying. So if he can maintain the lead into the first corner, he should be able to hang on to the lead at least for a very long time, if not for the entire race. So the turn 1, and especially the run into turn 3 as well, it's very, very important for tomorrow's race. And let me just remove this person. Gross H says Vettel on softs. Yep, that is true. And Rosa Ruse says, I thought Leclerc was on softs too. No, he was on mediums, I believe. I believe he set his time on medium tyres. Well, actually, I'll look on Twitter to get the final results up, because then we'll be able to see what tyres they used. And yeah, I've got the final classification with all the lap times for you guys. So let me get that up. And Charles Leclerc, I don't know. He might have done his time on softs. He might have done. We'll have to see tomorrow. But let me get rid of this stuff. And now let me get up that final classification for qualifying here at Silverstone. And let me just get it on screen. Here you go. And I'll read it out one final time. So, on pole position by 6 thousandths of a second, Valtteri Bottas, and Lewis Hamilton second, Charles Leclerc third, Verstappen fourth, Gasly fifth, and then Vettel horribly in P6, then Ricciardo seventh, Norris eighth, Albon, great performance in P9, Hulkenberg P10, Giovinazzi, I think good in P11, ahead of his teammate again for the third time in the last 4 races, Raikkonen 12th, Sainz poor 13th, Grosjean 14th, Perez 15th, Magnussen poor 16th, Kvyat also poor in 17th, Stroll again knocked out in Q1, and then Russell and Kubica at the back. But let me now read out some final comments from you guys to see what you thought of qualifying, and also what you think going into the race. By the way, Divers Paradise, great to see that you'll be here tomorrow, and I cannot wait for the race. I absolutely cannot wait for the race, because again, look at that top 4 separated by just under 0.2 of a second. Now, that's not necessarily going to equate into the same gaps in the race, because race pace is always different to qualifying pace, but we will get overtaking at the front. Leclerc and Verstappen especially. I think Verstappen will have to go wheel to wheel with Leclerc if he wants the podium. And Gasly looking, I think, decent in there. Maybe he could have been a 10th quicker, but in terms of position, I think Gasly did the best he could. Vettel 6th. That's absolutely terrible, honestly, for Sebastian Vettel. And look at that, Daniel Ricciardo not even that far behind. Only, what, 4 tenths behind? Vettel really not close enough. Right, let's take a look at some final comments. Cybertrader says Vettel has lost his edge. Yeah, he has. Definitely after Canada. Because I think Canada and what happened really disappointed and dismayed him with how the race was took away from him. But if you look at this season, he hasn't been that good. Australia, yeah, the car wasn't good, but he didn't really, outperform the car. I think he basically just did what the car could do. Bahrain, poor. Qualifying was alright, but his race was poor. China, I think he did the best he could. Baku, I think he did the best he could. Well, he did the best he could in the race. Not sure about qualifying. I think qualifying he could have done a lot better. Spain, I think Ferrari car was poor, but I think Vettel did the best he could. Monaco, good. Canada, good. France, awful. Austria, I think he had good pace in Austria, but he didn't get to show it because of the extra pit stop and the reliability issue in qualifying. But today, and this weekend at Silverstone, poor. So if you look at this season, he hasn't been that great. He definitely has not been one of the top 3 or 4 drivers. For me, this season, he hasn't. He hasn't been that good. And you have to say, ever since Canada, Charles Leclerc has comfortably been the better driver. So Vettel, after this race, of course, it's his home race at Hockenheim. He's got to get an act on. He's got to get a move on. Because if he continues to be beaten by Leclerc race after race, then Ferrari might start thinking about dropping him for 2021. Of course, Vettel out of contract at the end of 2020. Connor Chapman says only Ferrari can take an advantage and completely blow it in just 10 minutes. Indeed, that is the Ferrari way, and that'll continue for a long, long time yet. And I said, didn't I, that Ferrari every time when they're in a good position they blow it, and they've done it again. Right, let me find probably a couple more comments and then we'll come to the end of the stream. Right, let me find a couple more. Spider Monkey says Racing Point need upgrades as soon as possible. Well, they got a big one coming for Hockenheim, so if that does work for them, then they should be up there with Alfa and Renault, but at the moment they are the slowest in the midfield. Hopefully that upgrade for them at Hockenheim does work, because if it doesn't, I think Racing Point are going to end the season in a very bad way. Very bad way, because I just don't see how they'll be able to keep up with teams like Renault, Alfa, McLaren as the season goes on. So, yeah, if that B-spec car at Hockenheim doesn't work for Racing Point, then I think it's game over for 2019. Let me get rid of that person. Richard Reed says Vettel lost more than his edge. He lost his way. Let the younger guy drive. Sebastian Vettel, and you know what? I'll make this the final comment that I'll answer before we end. Sebastian Vettel, his peak is over. The peak of his career has finished. He's not gonna ever, I think, really improve from now on. I think only he will get worse. Not massively or very quickly, but as time goes along, I think Sebastian will just get worse and worse. I think, honestly, the best Sebastian Vettel we saw was probably 2015. Probably 2017, you could argue as well, but I'd say 2015 was the best Sebastian Vettel that we've ever seen. And I think that was the peak of his career. And he was what? How old was he in 2015? 28, 27, and 27, 28 tends to be for sporting people the peak of their powers. So I think Vettel has long gone past his peak, and I think is only just going down, but very, very slowly. But guys, that is it for qualifying today at the 2019 British Grand Prix. Great to have all you guys along for another qualifying in 2019. And hopefully you guys will join us tomorrow. Again, this is the only place you can catch a watch along for the race for the 2019 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that video coming tomorrow. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or go to my homepage, subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And also smash the like button if you want to see this content continue. And also subscribe for the qualifying review that is coming out in probably at most an hour's time from now. So make sure to stick around and subscribe for that. Also, comment down below what you thought of this video and comment down below what did you think of qualifying for the 2019 British Grand Prix, and let me know what did you think of some of the performances in qualifying. And also, don't forget to join my Discord server. That's very important that you do that because the Discord is the best place for notifications, my videos and streams, and that's the hardcore Chazza HDF1 community, and we have about 300 people now in that server. So if you want to join that community that's a bit active, especially on a race weekend, then make sure to do so right now. Link below in the description. And also don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. And as well, check out my website, chazzahd.com, for more content like this. But guys, until my qualifying review in an hour's time, and until the race watch along for the 2019 British Grand Prix tomorrow live at 1:10 PM UK time, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.